Uh, Good evening and welcome everyone to the September 18th study session of the North Augusta Planning Commission. And we'll still do a roll call just so those on Facebook, if they can't see clearly, know who's here. And if you could please do a roll call.
Aaron Slade.
Red Harbison.
Bob Bigger.
Jesse Elliott.
And I am your chair, Christine Crawford. All right, so tonight we're going to discuss there's some typos and other errors that one would expect to find in a document this large. And so we're going to discuss those changes so that we can vote officially on them next month to make a recommendation to City Council for the edits. All right, take us away, Tom.
Yes, ma'am. In your agenda packet, you received an Excel sheet. Please excuse my lack of my rudimentary skills at Excel, but hopefully we got it across. But there's a 11 by 17 version there that I find it a lot easier to read. I have that there for you tonight. One of the things starting out is in chapter 4, and you know when you get it wrong in one place, you tend to repeat that. So in 4.12.1.3, and then in point 2 and point 3 and point 4, the wording in section 6.4 talks about parking, and the parking says to see section 6.4, which is design criteria, and contains no information about parking. Article 8 would be the appropriate place to go to look for parking standards. So that is, what would y'all like to do with that? Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me make sure. Okay, so the note, the 6.57 only applies to DTMU 1 is
6.5.
because you got that in notes. So that's just
Yes,
to let
ma'am.
us know that you can't send it to, instead of to 6.4 to 6.57. That was the point of.
Right. There is some criteria there in 6.5.7 on parking, but that only applies to downtown mixed use 1.
Okay. So then, do you have the wording from Article 8? Was there anything that was a major change from?
This is on the sheets. Yeah. It references you to Article 8 with the various zoning districts.
Wait a minute. Let me back up.
So are we making a recommendation to make it like 6.5.7.5 since there's already 6.5.8?
No, this is what I suggest is where it says, see section 6.4, say see Article 8.
Oh, okay. That's all I'm
what-
trying to.
That's what I was
okay.
like, how
Really, Article 8 is what I'm trying to say without telling you what to do, is Article 8 is the right section there.
gotcha.
Okay, well, that's all we need to do.
Okay.
Yeah, you didn't have to just.
So it's okay to move those to Article 8?
Yeah, Article 8 is fine. Yeah.
All right. And then the next one is 4.12.4.1. And yes, I got a typo there. It's supposed to say side yard, not size yard. In the R5 district, it says 0 or 15. Well, the old code was table 3-3 and said 0 or 5. I think that's a typo and should be 5 feet instead of 15. Does that sound all right with y'all?
Yes.
Check there. And then we go back to the same thing we had before. um, and this is the parking in the in 4.12.4.5.3, and then 0.6, 0.7, 0.8. It says, see section 4 or 6.4, like the 4 above it. And Article 8 is the appropriate place to send it to instead of section 6.4. Okay. And then downtown mixed use 1. Flip over here. It says, see section 6.5.7. And 6.5.7 has to do with design criteria, but it doesn't have anything to do with parking ratio, size of the parking spaces, aisle widths, any of that criteria. So what I would suggest is that when you say C 6.5.7, add, also see Article 8, so that you'd be catching all of that criteria as well.
Okay, so in that one, because it is between both.
Mm-hmm. And Article 8. Yeah. Otherwise, you don't get your parking ratios and stuff. And then in downtown mixed use 2, right below that, it says C 6.5.7. Well, 6.5.7 only applies to downtown mixed use 1. So unless you want to change it and make that part of downtown mixed use 2 as well, I think the proper thing to do there would be to make it see Article 8 like the rest of them. Downtown mixed use 1, there are. Downtown mixed use 2 is not. And I believe in 6.5.7, flip over here, that's where parking is not permitted as a principal use, and it also says no off-street parking is required for any use. So that's why I would say you probably want to limit that to downtown mixed use 1 and not extend it out to downtown mixed use 2. Yes, ma'am. In 6.5.7, off-street parking,
Yes,
that is under,
it's not permitted as a principal use.
and let me go back to 6.5 covers mixed use 1 district.
Okay.
So you've got all these things here. Then you get to 6.5.7, which talks about off-street parking. And that's why I say that only applies to downtown mixed use 1. And number 1 in that, it says parking is not permitted as a principal use. And it also says no off-street parking is required for any use.
Oh, okay.
So if you included downtown mixed use 2 in this, then the things zone downtown mixed use 2 down the hill would not require off-street parking. Across the street, Medac, up West Avenue, none of that would require off-street parking.
Okay.
And I think the intent was what was existing in the Georgia overlay, right there on Georgia Avenue, to have no parking and everybody else had to find some. land for it.
Okay.
Does that work for y'all?
Yes.
All right. Excuse me? No, sir. Correct. When we got into the development and down the hill in the Hammond's Ferry mixed use development, in that general development plan, it allowed some of that. But in the general code, no. And then parking for CPMU. It's another one of those 6.4 that should say Article 8. In the industrial district, same thing. Says 6.4. It should say Article 8. Critical reserve, critical restricted says the same thing. Is that all right with y'all to recommend? I'm trying to keep the easy ones first. Okay, now we go to 4.12.15. Maximum height in the public use district is, in the new code, is 35 feet. Public, but in the old code, 3.6.5. Whatever. Public use district are not subject to the dimensional standards of 3.5. However, such uses are subject to the landscaping standards of Article 10 and the parking standards of Article 12. So basically, there was no limit there. Let's think about what the public use district is. Okay, that's for the fire station. That's for this building, headquarters, but it is also for water tanks. It's also for the reservoir. You know, kind of factory-oriented things. So that, I think that was the intent behind the unlimited and not putting any dimensional restrictions on it when it was adopted. 35 feet would certainly seem low for even for a government building. I mean, this one's higher than 35 feet. So I think that was probably a typo. And I would recommend going back to unlimited since it's going to be a public entity that develops it, but y'all may think different.
Sounds fine to me.
That's fine.
You thinking awful hard, Madam Chairman.
No, I'm just trying to think through that as well. I think it's
Okay.
that's fine.
The next one is, and you may not realize that we have this district, but this is the manufactured home park. It's got, for parking, it says see section 6.4. Again, I'd recommend going with Article 8 there. Getting nods, and I think y'all are good with that. The next one, dwelling units in 16.4 has 7. In table 3-3, it had 7 dwelling units per acre. And I would suggest adding dwelling units / acre behind that so we know what that 7 is referencing.
Okay.
We good?
Mm-hmm.
You can tell we've been working in it a little bit. All right, so in table 10.2 and 10.4, and I think those are provided to you on a supplement in your agenda packet. It's not on this sheet. Nope, those are different ones I put in there. But basically, table 10.2 and 10.4 uses abbreviations that there's no footnotes for. And there was notes to table 14.2, 14.3, and 14.4 that didn't get brought over. So we would recommend putting footnotes down there explaining what those abbreviations mean.
Yep, that's good.
Okay. All right. Now this is one that has a scratch in our head. 9.3 and 9.3. Anyway, table 9.3 has a maximum allowable signage in downtown mixed use 1 and mixed use 2 at 100 square feet. Then we go to section 9.6.3.2, and it states you can have 200 square feet or 3 square feet per linear foot of street frontage, whichever is less. We're saying 100 square feet here, 200 over here. And what happened is, or what I think happened, is you had the 200 square feet that was allowed for the downtown. Remember, it was all one, and then we had the George overlay. The George overlay was restricted to 100 feet, 100 square feet. The rest of it could get 200. So I don't, my recommendations go with the 200, but maybe there is something there that I'm missing.
So if we went with the 200, it would still be 100 in the overlay?
No,
No.
there are no overlays.
Okay, gotcha.
And that's where the confusion on this one is coming in.
Okay.
So everybody could go to 200. I'm spatially challenged. So what's an example of a 200 as compared to a 100 sign?
Other than being a smart aleck, I can say it's twice as big.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I
Well,
think
100 square feet would be 10 foot by 10 foot.
10 by
So,
10.
so half a garage.
Well, let me see here.
The garage is
Yeah.
maybe 25. I'm just trying to think what would be a. He's looking at this one.
I'm a little spatially challenged.
So the first light and the third light is 100.
Yeah.
It's on building signs look a lot
This speaker
smaller
right above
than when
me,
you actually put them up.
if you
Oh,
went
yeah.
from the edge of where that vent comes out up here
Uh-huh.
over to where the sheetrock is,
Uh-huh.
that's 10 feet. That's construction measure.
Okay.
Each
Yeah,
one of
but
those
maybe
squares
use
is
10
2 feet.
Yeah.
So, you would
So then
block
it go
that
to
out. 200
You
square
think you have a
feet.
big building. 'Cause when the signs are on the buildings, they
Mhm.
look way smaller than when you have them in your hand. And look, so I like the idea of the 3 square foot per street frontage. So obviously it's not too empowering if that's the situation where it's, if 200 feet is like, if it's street frontage,
Yeah,
that stays in there.
Yeah,
Or-
if
yeah, that's what I was-
if that would limit it from on a small lot.
Yeah, because that's what I was saying. Because some of those smaller storefronts, you don't want the whole storefront to be a sign, because that can get into some of the wacky stuff.
Yeah, because if you've got that overlay,
Yeah,
kind of keep
uh-huh.
that. Yeah.
That's total signage on the property.
As everything.
Total.
Does that say it in there? Total?
Yeah, that's in the
The rest of the wording somewhere?
yeah.
Okay.
It's the maximum square feet.
It's not
Yeah.
signage.
Yeah, so I think as long as it's the 3 square feet per linear foot, whichever is less part is in there to keep it proportional to
Yeah, I'm good with that.
the front of the
What
building.
constitutes the sign? Is this the name of an overall development? Got multiple businesses in it. Does that count as the overall square footage as well?
Yes, sir.
Like Beacon
Say-
Point with all their signs up there, kind of. Yeah.
Yep. And you know, that's something we're trying, that's unique. And they may need a variance coming down the road. I don't know. We have gotten a master sign plan from them and, you know, working through there. And right now we're okay. But, you know, that is 200 square feet is kind of the typical amount, you know, that you have for a project.
Well, signage, does that count against like the awning? A logo on a awning?
Yes, sir.
Advertisement on the side.
Yes, sir.
And, and street
Yeah.
frontage, this is a silly question, is like your USPS address street. Is that your street frontage?
We would look, yes, we would look at the dresser tool where that is and um, measure that length. Usually they max out at 200 most of the time.
That's what I'm thinking of. Well, just yeah, I'm thinking of things that have residential. We use whatever if you're on a corner where your mailbox is your street. Yeah,
Commercial.
and that's what 3 linear feet of this may be way different than this. So, but do we need to clarify any of that? What constitutes street, or that's just standard?
I think that's kind of standard in the industry.
All street frontage or front street? Like if you were
Yeah,
looking at-
I've never thought about a corner lot before, but yeah, you could measure that around the corner, but you're gonna max out at 200 square feet. And to be honest with you, I would give them that. You know, I would. I'm going to err on being fair to the business entity there. If I've got something I can hang my hat on why I made that decision, and the 3 words that y'all know quite well, and we'll be hearing again, and I'm not being arbitrary and capricious. So, all right, so we're good at moving that to 203. Good, because that's what I've been doing. This one is not addressed. In the old section in 19.7.1, abandonment of a use, we did not include that in our current development code. And the previous code, if you abandoned the use for a period of 6 months, it's the non-conforming use is dead. As I put it, granddaddy has died. So the only thing that can be put back in that building would be a conforming use. And for whatever reason, we missed it. Is that okay with y'all?
No, that definitely needs to go back.
Okay. All right. I have not. But I would be honest with y'all, I think that's the intent that everybody has. So until somebody tells me I'm wrong, that's what I would be going with is kind of, or until I'm called on it, I'm going to try to do what I think city council want me to be doing, if that makes sense. And then I can get my hands slapped if I mess up.
I mean, is that not what 3.5.4 explains?
3.5.4. Let me go back over here. I like this. You're asking questions.
I just remember talking about non-conforming uses, and so I just went and looked it up real quick. Application for your judgment.
I think you might be right. Why didn't I see that?
I think your wording is just slightly different, but
Yep. A use or characteristic of use such as time.
Well, it doesn't have your timeline in here. Here you've got 6 months.
But you got
Oh,
6 months in this
consecutive.
too.
No, I see.
Yeah,
Okay,
6.
never mind.
Just saying 6
Nope,
consecutive.
I think you're right. That's under non-conforming uses.
So then we don't need the additional.
Yep. So maybe, hopefully, you can find me wrong on a couple others.
But
Go
you
ahead.
may still want to. I don't, and then that's a style thing. That last sentence that you had in your recommended edit
Mhm.
makes it a little clearer that you cannot go back because otherwise you're ending on over temporary cessation of section shall not be considered a discontinuation. So you're talking about what is not just this continuation. You don't talk about not being able to go back because it's a change. You may just want to add that
The last sentence.
for clarity.
For clarity,
After the specified time period referenced herein, the property shall not again be used except in conformity with the use regulations of the district in which such lot, building, or structure is located.
Yeah, I think this paragraph is more clear than what's in the book. So if
Yep.
I'm reading both of these, this is going to make
Yeah, I
more
would put
sense
at
to
least
me.
that last
Yeah.
sentence on
Yeah.
the end.
Well, which one would you prefer?
No, I think it's so the version the 3.5.4 does say is more detailed around vacancy, abandonment, or discontinuance
Okay.
for 6 consecutive months. However, it does include language around a temporary cessation. So I like that part of it, but I think the clarity of the last sentence in your edits, so this after the specified time period isn't necessary for the end. So I would leave the reestablish limited 3.54 as is, with the exception of adding this last sentence, which says after the specified time period referenced herein, the property shall not again be used except in conformity with the use regulations of the district in which in such lot, building, or structure is located. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. It's just more concise, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's telling you can't come back in after.
Now, let me ask you a question on
Uh-huh.
that sentence. When I read that, are you saying that you have a building there, a non-conforming building, in that it doesn't have landscaping or parking ratio, or parking lot, that type of stuff, not up to snuff? It had a non-conforming use there.
Right.
That non-conforming use left. Can a conforming use come in and occupy that facility without bringing the parking and everything there up to code?
How would they be conforming if they don't?
That is my question.
Because
Okay.
it says, because that's where that last sentence clarifies, because it says after specified, except in conformity with the use regulations of the district in which such lot, building, or structure is located. So I think that last sentence adds
Saying
that
you
gotta bring it up to the regulations. I think it clarified. That's why I think we're.
And I'm thinking that might be why we left that sentence off. But if y'all want it brought up, I'm fine with that. What concerns me is dark buildings that go dark People don't come because it's the cost to bring the entire site up. And I think about where Freddie's was at, and that was vacant for so long. I think about Ryan's up there. Places. Of course, Ryan's is the use was good, but
But so this,
Mhm.
I say we want it brought up. We know we have a lot of household and income coming, and if there's, if we're going to incent a business to come in, I feel like support for that. And I get what you're saying. There's a cost to that. And does that deter people from coming in and helping something that's blighted or dark or whatever you call it? But yeah, I get what you're saying.
okay.
Because I think by the same token, I think similarly, you don't want somebody coming in snatching up all currently abandoned buildings and saying that I get grandfathered in on X, Y, and Z, but not B, B, and C. I mean, I don't know that we want that. Because then how do you pick and choose, right? So is it a conforming use based on parking now, but it's not conforming on landscaping? Like, I think if you don't say it's got to be brought up to all regulations, I don't know how you pick. Yeah. hmm Yeah. Yeah. I just think you start getting into the weeds on what's enough change to be considered. And I don't think that's a position.
I'm with you. Like I said, that's why I wanted to make sure I was thinking right. Um, and then this was another one, Mr. Bigger. If you can find this one for me, I'm a happy camper. 12 point or 13.2.6 in the new code, it wasn't addressed about non-conforming signs. And this is cut and pasted from the existing code. I don't know if that's what you would like to use, or would you like to use something different?
I'm gonna mess you up and ask this question.
Mhm.
When there was a previous committee that worked on signage and language around signage,
Yes, ma'am.
was there any part of that included this, or you know what I'm talking about? That
Well, I do, but that was before my time. So, but this is what you see here is the verbiage out of the old code. So
right, but in between the old code and this one, there was a committee that did a work and they had a document just on signage with recommendations around
right, and then that was adopted in
Right.
yeah.
So I was just wondering if there was any language in that because it was in between this old code and the new code that would be applicable here instead of the old. You understand what I'm?
Yeah, but it would have been adopted and placed in the old code because the committee was while the old code was in effect.
Okay, so so then this would be the newest
This would be
that language.
that language.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that work wasn't over.
Mhm. I thought we had put something in there to do that. So you, it would be in conflict with that. I was thinking there was something someplace else, well, for sure. So you may want to take that out. Mm-mm.
May continue. Yeah, because that's discontinued.
Well, and that's the kicker. If somebody came in 5 months after a business, it's one thing if I'm selling hamburgers and I sell it to you to sell hamburgers, that's not really a change. I selling hamburgers, I go out of business. I go out of business for 5 months. You buy it. I'll sell hot dogs. That's a different business, but you don't have to bring it in compliance. If I go out, if it's out of business for 7 months, you got to bring it in compliance.
So let me give an example that's even, I guess, it's not that, unfortunately, more likely, you could be shut down for a fine
Mm-hmm.
for 6 months.
Yeah, if I think
But that's, yeah, but that's a not, I mean, so where is that covered to make sure? But it's, okay, after vacancy, abandonment, or discontinuance for 6. Cause, okay, because I've been through one of those where that wasn't.
really,
Yeah. But it would because we had to, because when you have a fire and you have to rebuild because your code, because what you have to come back with is going to be different than what you had, then it's not, so then it's not grandfathered in. So as an example, if anything ever happened to Hardee's in Clearwater
mm-hmm.
and they had to redo anything, they
Mm-hmm.
could in that same footprint because of the requirement. But if a fire happened, yeah, I'm just saying. No, but that's fine if y'all say and read it that way, then that's fine. I'm just because it's or discontinuous. I just wanted
I, I would not interpret it that way.
to be okay.
However, I see where you're coming from, and I think different than a lot of people. So
No, but I
I'll just
mean
leave it
that's
like
that some people would interpret it as a discontinuous.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I wish that we had been able to that it had been interpreted that way for us out of the county.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's all.
So back to 3.6.2, you want to leave that in or take it out? Or do you want to take out that sentence that you were adding to 3.5.4?
So you can I guess take that out and just leave it as is if that's the flow, and then it goes to continuous permitted. But I still think
Okay.
I think the question around because that's a non-conforming use versus a non-conforming feature.
Right. But we added that sentence that you have to conform to all the requirements for the district. So that means you got to conform to all those features. And it's like Rhett said, that put these two are in conflict.
Okay.
So what's my direction?
I guess leave it as. So I guess based on that, then leaving it as is in the new code is your direction because the paragraph that section 19.7.1 isn't needed between 3.54 and 3.6, correct?
Right.
Is that correct? Are we all are confused enough?
And that was whenever it was redone. I think that was the intent of it, was to say, hey, uses over here, features over here, and if whether it's abandoned over here is a use, and just because the use has changed, that mean you got to bring everything in the compliance. Here's another thing too: is you have a non. This is under use. So unless the use is non-conforming, if you have a conforming use there, but the site is otherwise grandfathered in for various things, it wouldn't apply. The sentence that we was adding wouldn't apply. So the use and the features, to me, are two different lanes. But you can tie this lane to this lane if you wanted to, or tie something in that if this is abandoned for over 6 months or something, it has to comply.
So non-conforming use. So if it was now is everything around you is zoned residential, but you were grandfathered in with the commercial use.
Mm-hmm.
If that business closes, and as long as it reopens within 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
then they would still be allowed to operate as a business. If they close down for month 7,
Mm-hmm.
then based on this, because that's the use and not a feature,
Mm-hmm.
then they would not be able to go back in as a business.
So over 6 months, yes, ma'am. Now, if it's under 6 months, what is the underlying zoning, and what is that use? So if the use was a restaurant and it went to car sales, you couldn't do that. You couldn't switch it to a non-conforming use. It would have to be the same use that was there, existing.
Within 6 months.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So then that is use as opposed to then the rest of it. So 3.6, and that piece is actually referring to features.
Yes, ma'am.
So what I think we were talking about before was whether or not then the regulation. So the regulations that would be imposed would be based or defined on that use, right? So if you had a business and it's in a residential area, but it's a business, and they come back, then the applicable, if we add that sentence that we were talking about, then they would have to come back with parking spaces like everybody else's, which is a problem because in that space, that probably would not be true. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Correct. And it may be that the site wouldn't support that, can't handle it. Then you come for a variance. And just where I come from, my idea on this, and for what it's worth, is when you go down a road, and there's a business that's vacant, that doesn't say much for the community. That bothers me. It makes you, especially if you get them bunched up, you start feeling like you're in Allendale or somewhere, But if I want to see the lights on, I want to see activity, I want to see buildings alive, and yeah, that is the thought process from my point.
Yeah, but I guess I also don't know that I want somebody else to move because you keep the same use. If I own that restaurant and I sell it to you as a restaurant, then you don't have to you don't bring in any, you don't come up to code for any of the other. So I don't know if I want you to perpetually be able to operate that one restaurant in the middle of all of those houses either. without having the same requirements met that we demand of anybody else who would have done the same thing in any other location. That's the only.
But, and I'm not trying to be argumentative, just for discussion.
Yeah, no, I don't be argumentative.
Uh,
I'll be all right. I'll live.
Unless if that business is operating and you sell it to the next person, that section's not going to apply anyway because it's not abandoned for 6 months. Mm-hmm. I don't either, but you know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I think I am also less concerned about abandoned places staying abandoned because of previous use. I think they're abandoned for other reasons, right? Be it access, be it some of which actually maybe would be fixed. You brought it up to code on me. I don't. I, Philosophical.
And path forward. No offense, but I'm, you know, um,
So do we want to leave that sentence on?
do you want to
No,
leave that sentence in?
no. So I just recommend leaving it as we did in the new code and not messing with adding.
Okay, all right.
That's what I. Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Sounds like a winner, I think.
Okay.
And then the next one was non-conforming signs. And this is out of the current code here. It was not addressed. And like I said, Mr. Bigger, if you can find this one for me, I'm a happy camper. Okay. This probably would need to be added in somewhere.
Okay. I'm looking at that's the old. What's the where were you suggesting it? But no, I mean, what section? Where article?
We would put it in chapter 9.
Is there recommended
Um,
place in there?
oh, hadn't found it. Probably put it toward the end.
So
Probably somewhere along after prohibited signs, probably 9.8. Or we could put it in the nonconformity section. Which one do y'all think would be better? Okay.
I would actually put it before prohibited.
Okay. I was just being lazy.
I mean, that's easy, but I don't.
Just won't have to just have to reformat a little bit. Excellent question.
I say just leave it general and play it by the situation. That way you're not pigeonholed. Neither side is pigeonholed into anything. Play it as it goes.
And this is just a question, if I may. Picking your brain. When we say sign, does that include the sign pole being abandoned? If it's an abandoned sign, does that include removing the sign pole that's supporting that sign? Mhm. I, one unit. That's the way I tend to see it too, but I was just curious.
Well, and a sign that's been taken down and the pole's left is still tacky.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're gonna take some down, I think the pole should come too, or whatever mounting.
Question.
No,
Well, that depends on how long it's been abandoned. Has it been less than 6 months
I,
or more?
I would say no, it does not, because it's not the sign.
Let's see.
Right.
Yeah. 'Cause
Okay.
When we've dealt with that, and that's basically we changed the poles from round metal poles to wooden poles, but it still hadn't stayed the same size and the square footage and all that.
All right. We ready for the next one?
Yes, sir.
All right, the next one.
Oh, not trees again.
Yeah, this is trees. All right.
Well, let me come back 1 second.
Mhm.
So, is the definition for abandoned non-conforming sign shall be removed the same definition that we have before on just abandoned, so 6 months or more without continuous use? Okay. So, do we have a because we have a glossary? Is abandoned explained in the?
I do not believe so.
So we may just need to let me see. Abandoned discontinuance of an activity, land structure activity, necessary utilities are no longer actively occupied.
18 definition.
Just a question is whether or not you need to include 6 months for it in the abandoned or abandonment definition.
Abandoned.
So then add abandoned non-conforming signs. So abandoned for at least 6 months. Non-conforming signs shall be removed. Okay. Is everybody okay with that instead?
All right. Run
And
that by me again now.
So he's saying instead of adding it to the definition of abandoned,
All right.
just putting in this code that we just addressed, abandoned for 6 months or greater, non-conforming sign shall be removed. Was a proposal. Just for consistency of the definition of abandoned.
All right. We ready to go to the trees?
Yeah.
7.6. Street landscaping, 7.6A buffer width. And I believe that is an attachment.
Okay.
That's the first table that's in your stuff. But there's not a table 6.6A buffer width. All right. Figure out what I'm saying here.
Oh, it's 10.6. Yeah, it's table 10.6. Yeah.
Yeah. But I
7.
don't
Yeah.
think that we've got that. Well, I think what I'm trying to say is we don't have this chart in the 7.6.
In the buffer within the street section. I mean the tree section.
Right. Okay, 7.6 talks about street trees and reference 7.A. 7.6.
10.6 is a fire code.
Wait a minute here.
So you want to, yeah, so you want to include it as 7 point, whatever. 7, yes.
Right. So you have
Hmm?
attachment. Or table 7.
I'm glad you understand that. I got myself lost here.
1 plus, well, or is that the same thing? No, it's,
We're just sticking in a new table. You're insert.
right, but is it, what different information is it giving you than 7.6?
7.6.
Because it's got minimum width, large trees, and frontage instead of buffer point.
There is, this chart has, let's see. Oh, it says C 7.6A, minimum width of planting area. But there's not a 7.6A.
You remove which section?
Right.
Okay, so then, so 7.6 is street trees. And this buffer, minimum buffer is everything but street trees? Or? Right, but
Correct.
we're proposing that it goes in somewhere after that, right? That it be included.
Yeah. Minimum width of planting area. That's where it refers back to 7.6.A or 7.6A, but there's not a 7.6A.
So you're saying that, okay, so this table that we have labeled 10.6 should be 7.6A.
No.
Because see,
Wait a minute. Well,
buffer this,
No matter how wide.
yeah, right. Okay, that's what okay.
you say so. All right, so it says 7.6. Run that by me again. Okay. All right. And just leave it at, and you don't have a minimum width. Okay. Works for me.
So that's the same information. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the 7.3 is what's here in table 10.6. Yeah, so that is included. It's just at 7.3.
Now, that makes sense. Better sense than not, figured.
Reference buffer points. It's the exact same chart.
All right.
References table 7 no chart assigning buffer points. But it
Well,
does.
this is the one right below it, 10.5.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So you're saying,
Where you've got in here where you have to have so many points for things. It doesn't tell you what those points are. Yeah. Let me see here.
okay. So then would want to add table 7.3A or whatever that tells you what the points were. Is that what?
All right. In 7.3, minimum required buffer points per linear foot.
Right.
Okay. But there's nothing in here that tells you how you accumulate those points. So that is why we were recommending adding the old table 10-5 in here so that it would accomplish that.
Okay. So then that would be like table 7.3.3A would be what previously was table 10.5.
We'll figure something out with the numbering.
Yeah, but that's what that. Okay.
Okay. The other
Can you
thing
just add? Can you add just a footnote and not have to do a table?
we're going,
That'd be easier.
yeah, and that might, yes, that might.
That'd be easier.
I like that.
Okay.
Thank you. The next one is lighting curfew or pole height. Again, another misspelling. Is in, this got left out of the new code. The old code, 7.4.7, 7.4.8, there was, in it, 7.4.9 with a lighting curfew. There was a allowable height limit section for outdoor sports. But this was something that was left out when we switched over. And we'd recommend adding that in. It would probably go in the lighting standards, wherever we have that at. Didn't look at the particular standard.
So it would be under not street lighting. Design and performance standard lighting 14.2.
That would probably be it. Yes, we have lighting standards that probably go under 14.2.
We did have something about I thought outside sports. Didn't we have something we reviewed on the lighting for that somewhere else? Am I incorrect? Because I thought we talked about that with schools and stadiums. Somewhere, though my mind is. Does anybody else remember that? Because that's somewhere else.
I don't remember what you're talking about.
We talked about lighting for schools and stuff off of stadiums at one point, and we talked about, but I don't remember which section it was in. Because see, there's no reference to outdoor sports facility. I thought we talked about it somewhere else.
There is 7.4.8 outdoor sports facilities here. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So if.
However,
Mhm.
I don't know if it would apply. it would probably not apply to the schools because they're zone public use.
Okay.
Correct. It would.
So this says that publicly owned and privately owned shall be reviewed. No, no, no. I just wanted to make sure that if we moved all of this to the lighting section, that we weren't addressing outdoor stuff where we had it somewhere else. That's all. But I maybe.
Is this good to add to the lighting section?
Yeah.
Thank you. I think I'll get Phyllis to do some of the typing for me. She's better than me. Okay. And then the next one would be, I also cut and pasted that for you as well. We don't have any criteria to follow for site plan approval. Now, how do we do that? This was in the old code. And other than making some changes here, I think we'd like to have that again. Oh, probably 18.5. Correct. Correct. During our review process and y'all's review process, you know. Mhm.
What this adds
It basically gives us an outline of what we're reviewing. Yeah, when we're writing up the staff report for y'all, what you're looking at, we're looking at, the use and development's located and design, the use and development complies, the use development is located, designed, and proposed, conforms with the provisions of the comprehensive plan. Those are the big ones in there. That gives us an outline basically of how to write the staff report and what to look for whenever, if it is a minor site plan for staff to look for, or if it's a major site plan, what y'all should be looking for. Correct.
this is basically a detailed outline of definition of what food required for food.
Yeah, correct. No. We would add that as far as review criteria. We would add that as number 4 or number 5.
Um, no, there may be parts of the 554, like 1, 2, and 3, that may need to be in the general site plan,
Mm-hmm.
like the user development, operating, maintain, promote, or develop. Like that language may be there, and then on this is number 5 is the ones that are 554.5.
Mm-hmm.
So some of that language may need to go up in general site plan and not.
Correct. That's where I was looking at putting it in 18.5.1. Probably start off with a 5 there, or have a criteria approval criteria and come down with it. Correct. And then it's basically the same process for a general development plan for a plan development. Um, this is basically everything. We could probably take out point 2. Yes. Y'all are probably there ahead of me on this one. There is. And I think that's part of the problem is that you have, if you go back, way back to chapter 4, and you look at the you look at on page 34, 4.12.13, these are the standards that you have for a PD. Uh, but there's nothing in here that talks about a general, excuse me, you know, where's the general development plan requirement? Where is, this is C article, so we would probably recommend adding this type of information into Article 18. And because here, you see Article 16, 10, 6 and 4. Yeah. And also probably put a note in 412.13 to see whatever that is. I'm just being difficult tonight. I appreciate y'all's help with this. Oh, and right now I'm just going to put add to Article 18, if that's all right,
Yeah.
and I'll fit it in there somewhere.
Note to go back to page 34. And Article
18. What page was that? Thanks, ma'am. All right, and while we are here, and this may be one we can talk through. Another criteria that was left out was criteria for, if you look under for variances, it's really wide open. 242, page 242. Variances, there's no criteria there as far as what they use to approve a variance. And basically what we would do, what we're recommending, and I didn't include this is a last minute update addition, is take from this book and put that criteria, that same criteria for the BZA to review back in the book again. What the consultants recommended was that the BZA in their rules of procedure put that in there. After thinking about that, though, the applicant, yeah, well, yeah, and where when he says where can I find that criteria, it's not codified. It's not approved by council. So this is, yeah, yeah. That was the reason, is so they could change it as they as needed, and you know, in transparency. Right. Well, it'd take city council to change it. You can always, a recommendation from y'all and 2 readings of council, and anything in here can be changed. But by having that criteria, it puts it out there. It's more transparent, approved by council, and is, it's there. It's in the book. We give them a it's a 1-sheet application, or well, we give them several things, but there's a sheet that says, okay, you need to do this for your application. You got to fill out an application, designation, and then it gets to the criteria. And we're still using the old criteria, to be quite honest with you. We haven't gotten away from that, and I don't know that the board wants to get away from that. And we tell them in a conversation or an email that they need to find in your favor for each one of these items, H through whatever. So you need to address each one of those and how and make your case for how it complies with this particular criteria. Sometimes they get creative, but that's okay. Um, you know, for the board to find for them, yeah, we need an answer for all of these. So that's how we do it now. Does that answer your question? I think it's about 10. Mhm. Okay. I was trying to find them to read them to you, but I'm not having much luck at that, I don't think. Yep. Yeah, it is. It is. It might be in the, it's in here because I've read it before. It's the standard boilerplate. Okay. I'll add that to them. I appreciate y'all doing this tonight. And that is kind of it for me. I've got one other item. This is a what if. There's um, there's a couple other sheets at the dais with these. And there's been some questions about canopy signage and non-illuminated signage in downtown mixed use too. And I don't know if this is a can of worms you want to open or not, but this kind of gives you an idea of the it's called halo illuminated signs. Um, yeah, basically they're not allowed in downtown mixed use 1 and 2. And then also, you know, on these canopies, if you look at 7-Eleven, that kind of sign would be allowed, but they would like to do, so there's folks that would like to do like the kitchen where it's on top of the canopy. And right now, the kitchen sign would not be allowed, and these halo lit signs would not be allowed. Yes, we're talking about, well, if other places where illuminated signs are allowed, these would be allowed. But illuminated signs are not allowed in downtown mixed use 1 and the downtown mixed use 2. So would you want to allow these at all? Would you want to allow them in 2 but not 1, 1 but not 2, both 1 and 2, or not at all?
Not at all. I don't think it's different enough
Yeah, I concur with the not at all because I think even the examples are not the kinds of sign or mood that we want in downtown 1 or 2. You don't see places that are downtowns that are pedestrian heavy. You can, but I think in a lot of the cities that we would hope and aspire to be, that they would have Whole Foods. Like Whole Foods isn't on the main downtown fair with the lit sign. So I agree with Jesse on. So you want it for Georgia Avenue for downtown to have those? Yeah.
That makes sense.
But now you saying backlit or the halo? Okay. Okay.
And I would say, even so, the ordinance says illuminated signs, so right now they're not allowed. Well, correct, it's internally illuminated signs, right. And I look at these as being internally illuminated. Well, those are two separate things.
He's just using the 7-Eleven sign as an example.
Oh, I got you. Well, if you wanted that, we could probably come up with some verbiage um, referencing halo signs being permitted. They have to be individually, well, I was going to say individually channeled letters, but I look at market down there and it's not. But that, halo lighting or backlit sign lighting would be allowed. Internally illuminated signs except for backlit signs.
For me personally, but I mean it's a personal. I mean, it's,
I think after thinking it through and hearing you talk about it, like I with these two examples, obviously the Whole Foods grocery store is not the downtown business, but the way the sign itself looks, like I'm just thinking even of some of the businesses that are down on Georgia Avenue, that would I could see a sign like this looking good. Yeah.
but well, so but it's also not some. It would be every, right? So do you want the whole? Because if you once you do it, because then everybody is going to want that. Because I would if you got it, right? So it's not to think of it as a one off, but if the entire again, if the entirety of Georgia Avenue, everybody had these. If you're fine, then that's fine. I'm just. But,
Well, let me.
yes.
Now you could. You're talking about Georgia Avenue. Georgia Avenue is downtown mixed use one. So if you wanted to limit it to downtown mixed use two and not allow it on Georgia Avenue and downtown mixed use one, you could do that. I'm just options.
I think if there's a proposed change, then I think there needs to be more kind of work around what does it look like if you have so like we were just talking about downtown Greenville.
Mhm.
What does that look like, and what are their signage ordinances? So I think it's deciding what aesthetic we want, and then trying to figure out what that looks like. But I think would maybe require a
Looking
study
at some
session on
study.
that, but also with then some benchmarks on what it would look like, so that we're not just thinking. Because I think otherwise, what happens is you thinking, well, if we got 3 or 4. I'm thinking, well, what if all 20?
Mhm.
And I think all of them would be fine. I think, I agree, we need to go further into it because, let's talk about, can the backlit flat?
Yeah.
Can the backlit change?
Right, right.
Can the, I think we
Even brightness. Yeah.
and I think we cover blinking signs.
I think we'd find somewhere to stop that in the existing code, but that's not, I had not thought about that. Yeah, 200 square feet maximum.
Yeah, 200 square feet backlit on a small. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what it would look like for that, but I like the idea of having them be allowed with some
Restriction.
restrictions around size, brightness, colors, maybe. I mean, whatever it might be. But I do like the thought of allowing it.
Because it may be then that if we're doing backlit signs, that the size restriction change, right? Yeah.
Well, and you could, right now it's maximum 200 square feet, or what is it? A square foot, 3 square feet for every foot on the frontage. You could limit it to the square footage on the building facade. Um, 10%, 20% on the front of the build. So that you maintain that scale on the building facade. You would think the street right of way would give you that scale, but not necessarily.
Well, see, I think that's where having certain restrictions. That's where you have those rules because you can't say, you know, one person might do something crazy, so nobody can do anything. That's punishing everybody for the off chance that somebody's going to do something tacky. But you do have to have rules to keep that tacky thing from happening.
I just found a picture. I didn't think you did.
So what I'm hearing is go do more research and bring it back. They do. They're non-conforming. If and that is, to be honest with you, we would like to see both of the downtown gas stations redeveloped. We'd like to see them, the term scrape and build. But that would be one of their challenges, because they have an internally illuminated sign. So they would lose that when they scrape the old sign down. Well, there's two. You come to us for sign zoning approval, and that's a $50 fee, and we review it for compliance with the zoning and everything. And then it goes downstairs to building standards to actually issue the construction permit on the structure. And then they do the electrical inspections and footers. And, yeah. We're talking about wall signs, which are pretty simple, but some of those pole signs can get in needing an engineer.
I think that some of the signs like we have now on this side street going into Hemisphere where they're directional and they tell you what's on that street.
Mhm.
Like I think even personally would prefer more instructional signage at the intersections for pedestrians than lighting. So I think so if the aim of it is to give people better directions of what are located in downtown 1 and 2, I think there are also ways to do that without it just being lighting. Or it could be some kind of too, but so I don't know that I would pick those over.
Gotcha. Am I correct in the marching orders, though? Go do your homework and bring you more information.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
And
But some examples, I think,
Sure.
some pictures of nighttime for
In some downtown
house
areas.
areas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because like downtown Marietta, they don't do that either.
the only problem is,
Mhm.
And I think if there are other one caveat would be the other folks that you all have visited, like downtown Marietta that we talk about as kind of being who we aspire to be. But what does that look like? So the other places that you have visited for other solutions like parking, because we
Mhm.
like the way that they run their downtown. How do they handle it? What does it look like? I think making sure that so there's some consistency.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, and it's I mean it's also deciding. Yeah, it's I think deciding some building some consensus around what we envision or hope our downtown looks like. And so
And then the option 2 about the canopy signage, I'm getting the impression that leave it as it is.
yeah, I don't like that up there.
Okay,
You don't
sounds good to me.
I don't.
Yes, sir.
For a walkable downtown, I think that's a whole lot. But that's just again.
So is that part, this part with the 7-Eleven and all, that's just for the downtown area as well?
Well, what that is, the 7-Eleven is talking about canopies, awnings, and general requirements. It's not just about downtown. That is citywide. And right now, nothing goes above, below, or beyond the canopy edge.
See, I'd be fine with this, like with some of the new gas stations and all that are coming in. I think it's a good look. Honestly, the Sprint with the kitchen on the sign looks way better to me than the welcome printed on the flat.
Well, remember I was Googling both of these and finding examples, so.
Yeah. And it wouldn't be just gas station, right? I mean again, so it's not
Right.
so it's understanding that anybody that's got canopy, do you want that? That's all.
Sure.
Yeah, no, and we used to do. I mean, yeah, we had welcome.
Right.
And I've had it both ways. I've had restaurants that have welcome across the bottom.
I think we
I
can
mean,
throw this one in the bag with let's do a little more research on it, and maybe there are certain places that would be okay with it, or again, certain criteria that should be met.
Sounds good.
I mean,
That's-
stapled together, we
'Cause
just
it's a-
research at the same time.
Yeah, because it's a big. I mean, that kind of additional signage is of more advantage when people are driving by than in a
Right,
pedestrian
yeah,
area, right? So signage for pedestrians is very different. So it may be that if we look at canopy signage, that it is outside of the
Right.
downtown 1 and
Downtown,
2. That's all. Okay. All right. If there's nothing,
I think that's it for me.
all right. Thank you all. Appreciate you and using your brain cells this late in the day.
Thank
This
y'all.
detailed work. Thank you. Thank you, Tommy, for getting us to it.